Yeah, so I am already sharing my screen, so I guess I'm just gonna get to it. Well, maybe I'll first say that super much welcome to all to this webinar from Keda and myself. Very excited to have you all here. It's nice at the moment. It's sunny in Helsinki, as you can see from my lightning. But if it will go too sunny, then I will get blinded. But let's hope that that doesn't happen, which is very rare in Finland. To hope that there won't be too much sun, so that I can actually see as well a bit. Yeah, so we have a really nice group of attendees. Really great to see. Let's get started. And if there's any questions, you can obviously send them to the chat window throughout the presentation. But since I am in the presenter view and I'm sharing my screen, I cannot see any of the chat comments or anything. So if there's anything that would need my immediate attention, one can obviously unmute themselves. But if there's any questions, I maybe can take them in the end. But we can kind of see as well. Yeah, so the topic for today is top new CNCF projects to look out for. I had a beginner talk last week about the same topic, relatively the same topic. Why is there something? So relative about the same. Okay, so that relatively about the same topic. So then this week we're going to go a bit more deeper into the topic with an intermediate session around these topics. My puppy is making a sound on the background a bit, but we will not let that bother us if he doesn't start too much barking. So let's get to it then. Let's see. Yeah, so what is the kind of value that you get attending this talk? I have a bit of a disclaimer soon on what's the value for this talk as well, but in general, this talk is one that I do in more advanced conferences where I really kind of go deep into, well, not deep into the projects themselves, but what is CNCF, what are the different projects inside it and whatnot, and then I kind of hope that people will get inspired about the different topics about CNCF, about the different kind of different tools that you can use, and get to know these things. So when I do this for even a group of professional coders, for example, or advanced professional coders, these are usually completely new things to them as well. For example, the last two projects, I don't think I've done this session multiple times to very advanced audiences, to speakers themselves as well, and there hasn't been a single time where every single thing that I've spoken about would have been familiar to everyone. There has been always something new for everyone. So if you are coming from last week or more of a beginner background, you don't have to stress if you don't understand every word or anything. You can maybe take it more as a inspiration and ideas that you can kind of dive deeper into, rather than like stress about knowing everything right at this moment. Then, so who am I and why am I babbling on here about these topics? So I am Annie. Nice to meet you all in this way as well. I usually call myself a cloud native marketing manager. So I've been in tech marketing for about 8 to 9 years now, particularly in the cloud space. I'm currently working for Microsoft through Wunderman Thompson, which is my role is commercial marketing manager and event MC. So I handle a lot of the large customer events in Finland, as well as account-based marketing. So from that, I think you can already kind of guess that I have a business background, but I've been super interested in tech in general for many years through my work and personal life as well. So I am, avid, interested learner, super excited about these topics, but I do not code or do code for my living. I do marketing code, I guess, if that makes sense. So I am a Kubernetes and CNCF meetup co-organizer. So the topic of today is different CNCF projects that build upon Kubernetes. And we've been doing the meetup in Finland for over 3.5 years, which is really new because Kubernetes itself is not even too old. So we are I think maybe one of the oldest Kubernetes and CNCF meetups around, probably in the world, that is. Probably not the oldest for sure, but not the newest one either. So I also coach early stage startups, and I am a co-host of Cloud Gossip podcast that you can find at cloudgossip.net. And I have a later on like a really precise tip from that podcast as well. But for now, that's just all there's about that. So kind of to continue from my disclaimer before, that these are very kind of new topics, very up to date with the current info in a way. So no need to worry if you don't understand everything. It's more of a like maybe ideas that you can dive deeper into, or if you are more advanced than yourself, you can then, you know, take more maybe from it. But I have added a few explanation slides between the topics as an extra from my regular way that I do this talk, to kind of give a bit of context on how do these things look compared to, let's say, the last week's webinar that I did. And then tomorrow, if anyone up here has signed up for the AKS workshop that Microsoft is doing with me with Keda tomorrow, then we will actually get to do these things hands-on at that workshop. So just as a kind of brief reminder here, so what I spoke about last week, so Kubernetes is kind of the foundation of all of these things. So Kubernetes is an orchestration management tool, which is really, it's about managing containers, it's about making sure that everything runs smoothly in your environments. And it really goes into the cattle versus pet mentality. So you have to, you know, when you have to manage multiple containers at the same time, rather than, you know, only one server or only one container, then Kubernetes is a powerhouse tool for that. So we will be building upon, so you can use Kubernetes out of the box just as is. And then that's something that I kind of explained last week on how does that work. But then on this talk, I will kind of take it further and show tools that you can kind of plug in, kind of like an extension, I guess, to Kubernetes, so that you can get even more features and tools out of it. So I guess these are essentially add-ons to Kubernetes that you can then even get more features out of the service. And they are all under the umbrella of CNCF, the ones studying this talk. So CNCF, which is Cloud Native Computing Foundation, it's a foundation, a nonprofit, part of the Linux Foundation, which has a goal of bringing together the world's top developers and users and vendors, and runs the largest open source developer conference in the world, such as KubeCon. So it has been created, I think, well, in less than 10 years for sure, CNCF itself. And it was built around the fact that when Kubernetes was developed by Google, then the aim became that it wouldn't be, you know, a commercial part of Google offering, but it would be a non-profit open source software that everyone could build upon, improve, build together, build like a community mindset around it. And that's where the CNCF Foundation was built around, to foster that community and to foster these products that, you know, grow from that community as well. So what is the impact of cloud native essentially? To get an understanding there. So the use of containers in production has increased so much from 2016, it's up 300%. And Kubernetes in production, it has increased as well every year, like clockwork. And this is from CNCF 2020 survey, which is a survey that CNCF does every year to dive deeper into CNCF topics, interesting cloud native facts, and kind of like to see where the landscape, where are the developers. There's questions like, which services do you use the most? What are your challenges as far as cloud native technologies goes and whatnot. So it's really helpful, and it's for a person with business background such as myself. I think it's super interesting because it kind of tells the business and the organizational side behind the technologies as well. So what does the landscape look like? What does CNCF, Cloud Native Computing Foundation, actually look like? So this is what it looks like. And I think you might be thinking, what is that? That's way too much. It's super confusing. And it is, like, there's so many different parts of it. There's so many different kind of areas to it. You could talk about just this map, I guess, for multiple days. So we can kind of disregard it and think about only one portion of it during this session, which is the three stages of CNCF projects. So when you are a project under the CNCF umbrella, CNCF has a lot of different activities as well. They do training, consulting, all of these kind of things, like a foundation does, kind of, you know, educate its users and whatnot. But if you want to be a project, aka like a new software service or an app or that kind of thing inside CNCF umbrella, be fostered inside that community, then you are either in the sandbox phase, incubating, or graduated phase. So let's say I were to create a new app today, like, well, not an app maybe, but the Kubernetes, you know, add-on service app, and then I would want it to be included into CNCF. First, I would, you know, build it. I would maybe get a few people building it with me, and then when it was at certain stage, I would then apply to become a CNCF project. And then I would, if I fulfilled the criteria, I would get to the sandbox phase. And then when my project matured, so got bigger and, you know, more people involved, more everyone kind of contributing more, then it would move to the incubating phase, and then to the graduated phase when it's, you know, fully mature, totally ready for production. Everyone can use it on their work for enterprises for their projects. So when the numbers actually, they represent the number of projects in each of the categories. So there's 44 sandbox projects currently, there's 23 incubating and 14 graduated. When I started doing these talks around, I think 2 or 3 years ago, there was only 1 or 2 projects in the graduated phase. So CNCF and the Cloud Native Computing Foundation is really new. Like a few years ago, there was only a few projects in the graduated phase at all, ever. And now it's 14. So these things are growing year over year, but they are really kind of fresh as far as things go. So to kind of another view into like how does these different categories look like is that the sandbox phase is essentially kind of the innovators, the techies. So like the early adopters can use them. They are really cool. They're really new. They are already, you know, they can be used, but they are not super. There isn't like a huge backing there in a way. So it's more for the early adopters. And then the incubating projects are them from, you know, the early majority, and then they get more support, more features, more possibilities. And when you get to the graduated phase, you can then be used by conservatives, late majority, and everyone else in between. So they are fully ready for enterprise production in that way. So usually I'm always asked when I do this session is like, how can you know which is going to succeed? How can you know which projects are the best ones? And the answer is I do not know. There's no scientific selection method to choosing these sessions. It's not fortune telling for sure. I do not know the future. That is unfortunately not one of my skills. But what I do know is what the people around me are talking about, how many people are excited about these topics in the meetups that I hold, how many people are interested in these like certain projects and whatnot. So that can be an indication, and that's what I've used as an indication for what I think is cool and what I want to then present to you people. And I hope these are can provide a lot of input and inspiration to you guys as well. So as an expectation management, usually CNCF intro, so like talks at KubeCon and whatnot, project talks cover one project per 30 to 45 minutes per talk. And this is a 45-minute talk covering CNCF as well as 4 projects. So you can imagine that I will not be doing like a super deep dive into any of these, no matter what the technical level of anyone would be. So it's more of like you will get to hear about these, and then you can maybe deep dive yourself into the things that really interest you, that may arouse your interest. And then the projects in this talk are Helm, Linkerd, Kudo, and Keda. Helm is a graduated project. Linkerd is an incubating project, and Kudo is a sandbox project, and Keda was a sandbox project just until a few days ago, but I think, was it yesterday or the day before that, became an incubating project as well. So, and I think Keda and Kudo have been sandbox projects for about a year before this. Well, not maybe exactly a year, but a year and a half or whatnot, around that mark. And Keda is now becoming an incubating project. It was just announced by the maintainers. So let's then get to the projects after this brief intro to CNCF and their project methodology that fosters their community. So Helm is the project, graduated project that we kick off with. It's a package manager for Kubernetes that is best way to find, share, and use software built for Kubernetes. So what is then Helm? It is a package manager for Kubernetes. It's similar to Homebrew, Snap, or Chocolatey, but just for Kubernetes. So what is actually package manager? If we dive deeper into that, it's tooling that enables someone who has knowledge of an application and platform to package it up, the application up, so that someone else who has neither extensive knowledge of the application or the way it needs to be run on the platform, so that they can use it. So it's really something that, you know, if I know how to do it, then I can package up it for you so that you can do it super easy, super fast, because not everyone needs to know, you know, how to configure every single tooling in the world. So that's really the power of package management and the power of Helm. And that's why Helm also is one of the most popular, like, add-on extensions used, you know, services for Kubernetes, because it really makes using Kubernetes a lot easier. So if you were to now, you know, start trying to use Kubernetes on your own, please, I recommend using Helm from the beginning. So no need to kind of try to do everything on your own or anything. You can use services like Helm to really kickstart your learning and management and doing. So what are the benefits of Helm? So it helps you manage complexity. So charts describe even the most complex apps and provide repeatable application installation and serve as a single point of authority. It has really easy updates, so you can, you know, update really easily and take the pain out of updates with in-place upgrades and custom hooks. And it has really simple sharing. Charts are really easy to version, share, and host on public or private servers. And it's really easy to use rollbacks as well. You can use Helm to roll back to an older version of a release with ease. So what are the principles that Helm is then built around? Helm takes security very seriously, so it can be recommended for public deployment. It has multiple maintainers and it has multiple companies backing it. It has power user email lists and release candidates behind it. And it supports Mac, Linux, and Windows, and it passed 1 million downloads a month already in 2019. Maybe as a contrast, the project that I'm talking about later on today, later on this session, like Keda, for example, I think they have around 3 maintainers, and there's not too many kind of companies behind it in a way, but then with these graduated projects there's multiple people behind it, multiple companies, very like long-term things. And then, so how is Helm used? It's used by using charts. And what do you need to have to use Helm? It's to have a Kubernetes cluster, and you can have to decide on what security configurations to apply to your installation, if any, and installing and configuring Helm. And then as a super bonus project within this talk, another CNCF sandbox project is Artifact Hub that helps you find Helm charts easily, so that you can, you know, find Helm charts. So Helm used to have its own Helm Hub, which is, you know, a place where you could find charts. But then when more and more CNCF projects get started, then everyone realized that, okay, it doesn't make sense for every single CNCF project to start their own hub, you know, to find services or artifacts within them easily. So that's why the Artifact Hub was started, that then, you know, brings together all of the artifacts, all of the things that you can use from all CNCF projects. So you have a single experience for consumers to use there. Yeah, but that's it for that bonus project. So then I will do a quick Helm demo, the same one that I did last week as well, to showcase a bit of Kubernetes, but now we will see actually like how does Helm work then because I will highlight that a bit more maybe. So the demo is easily deploy complex application WordPress to Kubernetes using a Helm chart. So that's the charts that I was just speaking about. Let's go here. Let's put this here and then let's find my notes, because I guarantee you that I make so many typos even when I'm writing text messages. So I really need to copy paste these things. Otherwise we would be here all day. So if we do AZ account show, we can see that yes, there I am. I'm logged into Azure. It's all running really nicely there. And if we do then kubectl get services, we can then see that yes, I have an empty Kubernetes cluster running there, which is all nice. So then we can do kubectl get services all namespace, and then we see actually, well, it isn't technically completely empty. If we use all namespaces, we can see that there's a lot of Linkerd stuff there, and my next demo will be about Linkerd, so that's why those all show up here. And then if we do Helm list, we can see there's no Helm releases either here available. So now we need to add some. So we need to add Bitnami. Mouse there. Helm repo add Bitnami. And for me, it says that it already exists with the same configuration because I've done this before, this demo. So it can't, do it again, but for you guys, it would do more stuff there. So then we will do Helm search repo WordPress. And then we can see that there is 2 available, but as you can see, the other one is deprecated, and the Bitnami is an newer version. So this stable WordPress is older, Bitnami is newer. So we will not be using the older one, we will be using the newer one and installing that. Helm install Bitnami WordPress and generate name. And now we have a lot of things happening there. So then we can actually go to check if the external IP is ready soon. So we had a lot of new things happening here. We just gotten soon we will get the password, the secret using this. And if we do kubectl get services, we see that the external IP is there that we can actually use to access our newly installed WordPress. If I get my browser from here, it should not be up and running yet. It usually takes, a minute or 2, but we can put it to load there. So we can actually, access it. But while we wait for that to load, for the WordPress to get up and started, we will go to echo password to get this password to our Kubernetes, password to our WordPress. So we can copy paste it from here. And then when this kicks off and gets working, it should be happening soon. If the demo effect doesn't happen and not everything fails when you need it to work, it should be working soon. Then we can access the admin page of the WordPress as well. And this is that's how easy using it is. And what essentially what we have done here is we've installed WordPress and MariaDB to our Kubernetes cluster, configured WordPress, and stored the admin credentials securely as Kubernetes secrets. And that sounds like a lot, but with Helm you can do, as I said, someone who doesn't have who doesn't want to do like super complex configurations and doesn't have the knowledge to maybe not even do that, then they can do all of those things: install WordPress and MariaDB to a Kubernetes cluster, configure WordPress, and store the admin credentials, and all of that in this short of a time, completely from start to finish. And you can see here, this is my new users blog, very creatively named as a placeholder, and we can go here, and as you can see, it all works. We passed the secret, that the password that we got from here, and then we are logged in. And that's how easy it was doing all of those complicated things with Helm. So then we will get back to the slides. And we will get to the next project, which is Linkerd. So Linkerd is a service mesh. I have a next slide bit about what is that. It's ultralight, ultra fast, and security first service mesh for Kubernetes. The overall goal is to reduce mental overhead of having service mesh, and it provides observability, reliability, and security. So what is service? Yeah. Then the next slide is this one. Yes. So to kind of remind you on next slide of what is service mesh, we have to kind of remind ourselves on what is a monolith and a microservice. And microservices have been gaining a lot of popularity versus the monolith. The left one is the image for monolith, and then the right is microservice, where every service has its own kind of architecture, and every Microsoft services need to handle different areas. So there might be a microservice for if you have a web store, you might have backend, you might have the checkout and whatnot. So every single function has its own little thing, rather than the whole thing being just one big service. It's split into multiple tiny ones that all have their own components. So then service mesh manages the communication between these microservices, and this is why service meshes are becoming more popular. So different microservices handle different areas. So microservice might be handling business logic. For example, the shopping cart feature, as I mentioned before, it needs to handle communication configurations. The services really need to talk to each other. As you can see from this image in here, everything's just one big thing. You don't really need to have that much communication. But if you have microservices, all of these little services need to talk to each other. They need to communicate. It needs to have security. So if you have this image, if you protect it around it with a firewall, for example, getting in is difficult, but with it in here, you really need to protect the communication between the services as well. So it needs security more as well. You need to have retry logic, because you need to be restarting things and using things, and then you need metrics and tracing logic, so monitoring logic. So how many communications are working, how is the retry, how are all of these things. So you just need to know what's happening inside of your microservices as well. So the solution is to have a sidecar proxy who then handles the communication, handles the networking logic behind the microservices, because it needs that to function really well. And it usually also has traffic splitting functionality as well. So you can then do different versions. So for example, if you launch a new version, you can try out first with guiding 10% of users into that new version first to kind of test it out, rather than go all into the new one from the beginning. So what are the benefits of Linkerd then? Like why do people use Linkerd or not some other service mesh? So Linkerd is it has a really good open source community. It has a really good community mindset in general. It's 100% Apache licensed with an incredibly fast growing, active and friendly community. I have to say that they are really nice. It has a really simple and minimalist design, no complex APIs or configuration. For most applications, Linkerd will just work out of the box. It has deep runtime diagnostics, get the comprehensive suite of diagnostics tools, including automatic service dependency maps and live traffic samples. It's ultra light and ultra fast. So Linkerd is built in Rust, and it has super fast and small data plane proxies, and it installs in seconds with zero configuration, and it has actionable service metrics. So just as I mentioned, it needs the metrics side as well. So it has golden metrics such as success rate, request volume, and latency for every service. So what are the principles then that Linkerd is built around? It's built to just work. It's the main point. It's ultralight, so that's the lightest service mesh. So for example, comparing to Istio, which is another widely used service mesh, Istio has more features, but Linkerd has it's maybe faster, more lighter, easier to use because it's more simple to reduce operational complexity, and it is security first. So security is not it's not an extra, it's a default. Linkerd has its own proxy, Linkerd 2 proxy, built specifically to Linkerd. For example, Istio uses Envoy, which is another CNCF project, which is totally okay as well. But since it's a custom one, it makes it a bit more lighter and a bit more simpler to use, maybe. And so this is how our Linkerd demo app will look like. So it's very different to the Helm demo that I did. It's a proper enterprise grade app, and I've added Linkerd to it. And then we will soon see how does it look like. How does using Linkerd look like in practice? So what is needed to use Linkerd? Just injecting this, and that's it. It's super simple. So then there's the Linkerd demo, easy real-time service metrics. This is why I need to have a gazillion. This next demo is the reason why I need to have a gazillion of these terminals open, because otherwise I will get hecka confused on what's happening in and where. So let's go to here. Yeah, let's do kubectl emoji with the port forward, and then let's grab this one. I think it should be this to get the app running. So this is an app that we can use to highlight the Linkerd features. So this is more like I will show you how the app looks like, and then we will see what do the metrics look like. What's the feedback that you can then get if you had a similar app to know how is it working. So this app has a very simple functionality. You can pick your favorite emoji. So mask one. Oh, we'll pick that one. The mustache guy, and if it has other functionalities, for example, by default, like if you use every time you select the donut, it says fail. So then you can, with this app, you can highlight what does it look like in the backend if your donut voting doesn't succeed. So then let's see how does it look like actually if you use the terminal to check the data. So in here you see a lot of things happening. You see the bots voting, because if you see here, view the leaderboard, you can see that there's a lot more votes than I just gave, because there's bots voting on the background all the time. And this is them just voting away, not bothering with me or anything. They're just there voting constantly. So, and then if we do Linkerd emoji bot here, we can see what's happening inside a single pod. Well, all the bots are voting, and this is what's happening in the backend to kind of make that happen. But I know that this might be a bit difficult to, if you were to follow this on a day-to-day life to check up on your applications, but then you can do Linkerd dashboard here. And then it opened up here. Actually, I have to move this a tiny bit so that we can actually get you seeing the graphical interface. So when I inputted that to the terminal, it opened this here. So this might be a bit easier on the eyes to see, what's happening. So it's just the same data in here as well. So you see success rates, you see latency and whatnot, what's happening. And then, for example, the same exact views that you can get from the terminal, you can get from here. So you can see the bots voting, and you can see the feedback on there, or you can use other things to see. So you can really get really easily all of this data just by using that one, these few commands, and then you can get this all built in kind of here. So, and if you want even more info, you can go click here. Now I clicked twice accidentally, but then you can use Prometheus to see even more, these kind of global success rates, deployments, everything. So there's a lot of data, a lot of monitoring help that you can get by using a service mesh, for example, Linkerd. Yeah, and there, these are all gonna continue in the background. And there we go. Perfect. Then let's continue with the slide deck. That was the Linkerd demo and the last demo of this presentation as well. So how are we doing on time? Quite okay, actually, because the last two projects are a bit faster to get through. So then we have Kudo, the Kubernetes Universal Declarative Operator. Kubernetes has been really focusing on stateless apps, and for stateless apps, it works really well, but it doesn't really work super well if you know, not all the apps are, because all the apps aren't stateless. Some of them are stateful. So stateful apps need logic. They need specific knowledge to run a certain application. Kafka might differ from Cassandra and whatnot. So you need more resources there. So Kubernetes was very focused on stateless, and stateful apps do not really like it. So Kubernetes created stateful sets to solve this issue, but it doesn't kind of solve the fundamental issue. So you need operators for that. So the operators, what are they actually? An operator is a custom Kubernetes controller that uses custom resources to manage applications and their components, because built-in, like ready Kubernetes doesn't really handle the stateful apps so well. Operator manages the operator and monitors lifecycle, the custom knowledge. There's a lot of custom knowledge needed to build it. So each operator is unique and purpose-built for each application. So often operator framework or kube builder is used, but building operators requires really deep expertise and may require thousands of lines of code, which means that substantial engineering resource is needed for sure. So you cannot, just kind of build them on a whim. So that's where the Kudo, Kubernetes Universal Declarative Operator, comes in. So rather than using a custom operator that requires thousands and thousands of hours to build, it provides a universal operator with concept of plans built in. So everything is a lot easier, and you can do without having to do all that work. You can actually use the operators as well. So what are the benefits of Kudo? Kudo can create operators without needing deep knowledge of Kubernetes or coding, just as I said, by defining the lifecycle stages. It's just Kubernetes APIs, a lot easier to learn, and has Kubernetes native management, aka using kubectl and other familiar tools as well. Kudo is Kubernetes. It's a CNCF sandbox project, so it's very early on, very new. So then we will get to Keda, which is a Kubernetes event-driven autoscaling, which is making autoscaling simple for Kubernetes. So Keda is built for serverless. So if serverless is not a familiar term, it's a very new concept, and it's an execution model where the cloud provider is responsible for code execution, managing provisioning, and maintaining servers to help developers deploy code in a continuous manner with no friction involved. So what does it really means is that when you're using serverless, you don't need to pay for keeping the servers up if you don't have requests at the moment. So it's really like when you only need it, you can maintain servers and their uptime and resources, and other benefits as well. So this is something that Keda helps to, then help. So if you have a serverless app that is event-driven, and then Keda provides auto-scaling for that. So default Kubernetes scaling is not really well suited for event-driven applications, and Kubernetes is more for resource-based scaling, CPU and memory. So event-driven scaling, so Keda provides event-driven scale controlling that can run inside any Kubernetes cluster. You can install it into a new or an existing cluster. So if you have an event-driven, serverless, then Keda will monitor and preemptively, it can monitor the rate of events, so how many things are happening, to preemptively act before the CPU is affected. So this can, save you a lot of resources, and it's extensible and pluggable scalers to grab metrics from multiple servers as well. So what are the Keda principles then? It's not rebuilding anything that Kubernetes offers out of the box. So it has to be something new to Kubernetes, something add-on. It's single purpose, simple, non-intrusive, and it works with any container and any workload. So wrapping up now, so we went through what we went through actually today. We went through a CNCF overview. We went through projects like Helm, Linkerd, Kudo, and Keda, plus the extra of Artifact Hub. And then for my recommendations on what to learn more, there's Agile virtual training days that everyone can attend. I think I got you can check them out. There's constantly new trainings happening there. There's weekly, almost daily new trainings where you can do certifications. If you do a fundamentals training there, you can get a voucher for certification for free, which is Microsoft certification that can then, really showcase that you know these things. Unfortunately, there isn't a voucher program for Kubernetes or AKS in that way, but there is for Azure, there's for Azure AI, there's for Azure Data and whatnot. So there's a lot of good resources to check out from there. So aka.ms/trainingdaysfi is the place to go. There's all the dates available there, and you can sign up through there as well. I do recommend checking the CNCF server as well. It's a lot of fun checking that out. The project pages are here, linked here, and if you were to use these things on your daily or be excited about these things, I really highly recommend supporting your favorite projects on GitHub. And if you're interested in how this CNCF Technical Oversight Committee Chair Liz Rice thinks about the predictions for the future, there's a really good video from KubeCon there linked as well. Tech World with Nana is definitely one of my favorite resources for cloud native teaching and content as well. And CNCF YouTube has, so if you were, for example, more interested in one of these projects, CNCF YouTube has all the talks from KubeCon where the creators, the maintainers themselves have created like 30 to 45-minute talks on how to use these projects, what do they do, why do they work the way they work, and more examples on how you can utilize them. And you can find all the link and slides that I mentioned here from aka.ms/Annie materials. This particular version of the slide deck, I haven't added there yet, but I will add it today after this session. And then as a final note, I guess before the final slide, I have my podcast. We interviewed Tom Kirkhope, one of the maintainers and builders of Keda. Tom Kirkhope, and it was super interesting to hear. We didn't really go deep into the technical side of Keda or anything like that, but we really talked about is how does it look like, how does it feel like, what does it mean to be maintaining an open source project, which is completely non-profit, no one's getting any money from building it, they're just doing it on their spare time. Tom is a father of very young kids as well, so he was speaking about how he has many sleepless nights, building open source as well as taking care of the children and everything. So it was super interesting to hear from a person who's incredibly passionate about what they're doing and willing to spend their time on making better services for everyone to use, and really kind of passionate about all of these topics. So highly recommend that one as well. Then the one thing to maybe take away from this talk is to get inspired, maybe write down which project you are more interested in to dive in deeper, kind of more interested in checking these out, and then you can always reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn to ask more questions. I've been incredibly busy this week, so I have a bit of a backlog with the questions right now, but I will get to the questions at least eventually for sure. But yeah, that's it from my side. I think we're actually perfectly on time, exactly at 45. This was not planned to be such a perfect timing, but sometimes I guess timing works out really well. But yeah, that's it for the presentation. No questions, at least so far. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Annie. Have someone some questions about this topic? Or is everything clear?
Yeah, I think the topics are rather advanced, so maybe, well, they can be clear. That's totally fine. That's good. But I think it might be a lot of info in short time as well. So if it was any overwhelming at all, I do not blame you at all. But if any of the topics interest you more, you can then kind of dive deeper into them and see more on that side.
Yes. Okay. If everything is okay with everyone,
let's have a weekend.
Yes.
Really great to hear, Laura.
Yeah.
Yes, and Milia is very excited for the weekend. That's great to hear. I'm excited about the weekend as well.
Yes, let's have a wonderful weekend. Long and sunny weekend.
Amazing. Looking forward to that. But yeah, thank you, Janika, as well.
Yes. Well, now we shall go. Let's start everyone of our weekends.
Yeah.
And let's see you, Annie, tomorrow. And if someone else is there too, it's nice to meet everyone. But okay, I need to speak it. So let's start it. And
see you tomorrow if you're coming for the AKS workshop. There we can get to trying these out in practice. And then you can always go to the aka.ms/Annie materials to see the slides if there was anything confusing and kind of like catch up on them from there as well. And the slides for my last week's webinar on the introduction to these topics is there as well.
okay, and it's on YouTube. Okay.
No, it's aka.ms/Annie materials. I can actually put it to the chat as well.
Yes, but I download your last week's webinar on YouTube.
Ah, you did. Ah, well, that's even better.
So if you want to check it, it's on Mimit Keda YouTube channel.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, really excited to have you guys, everyone here. I hope it was informative and inspiring and not too confusing. Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So.